Let's face it, relationships can be confusing sometimes. One minute, things are going great, and the next minute, they leave you on red. How do you deal? In this series, we talk about the tough stuff and how to handle it when being ghosted is the least of your worries. Heads up, the next few episodes are going to be about sex, or more specifically, sexual violence. And in order to understand sexual violence, we have to understand consent. Consenting to something just means giving our permission. We can consent to hugs, to kisses from grandma, and to having our photograph taken and posted on social media. If you've ever went out for a sport, you're familiar with consent forms. You have to sign a piece of paper stating that you understand the risk of playing and you know what you're getting yourself into. However, just because you sign it doesn't mean that you have to play. A lot of factors might change your mind, an injury, or just because you don't feel like doing it anymore. There are no forms for sexual consent, but giving consent does mean that you understand the risks, like pregnancy, STDs, potential awkwardness, and are willing to go forward anyway. Your consent can also be revoked at any time, for any reason, meaning that if you ask your partner to stop, they have to stop. Otherwise, what happens from that point forward is no longer consensual sex. It's sexual assault. More on that later. Think of it this way. Consent is an ongoing conversation, not a sign on the dotted line situation. It means that everyone involved is saying, yes, I want and freely choose to do this, here and now. Not tomorrow, not next week, in this exact moment, to these exact activities, because I really want to. Specific, clearly stated, and without any pressure or force from anyone else. Here's a pro tip. If talking about your sexual boundaries is too weird to do in person, you might want to rethink having sex. Clear, open communication is key. A person might be okay with some things, but other things might be off the table, and you don't know unless you talk to them. And since clear communication is so important, you'll also want to rethink drugs and alcohol. Consent requires that everyone is conscious, sober, and competent enough to understand exactly what is going on. If someone shouldn't be driving, they can't consent to sex. If all this seems like a lot to take in, just remember FRIES. Consent is freely given, reversible, informed, enthusiastic, and specific. When consent is not given, it's no longer sex. It's sexual assault. And we'll talk more about that in the next episode. Until then, ta-ta for now.